Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in to talk about Slime, episode 13, or episode 1 of the second part of the second season, but let's just call it season 2, episode 13. Hey everybody! So we're going to go through the episode, we're going to talk about it. Slime is back, that's pretty cool. We have Veldora's return, we have a bump in new opening, but overall when you look at this particular episode, this is largely set up. I don't think anyone would really disagree with that, but let's go into the quick recap where I will give some little information as we go through. This episode we started off with Veldora's revival. It looked good, and I liked the little manga stuff that Veldora was talking about in the background. I also like that he pointed out he was a shogi master. This was neat. One thing I noticed about the anime is that they're really selling Rimuru and Veldora, and that's really funny. Like, when I think about it, and I think about their relationship over the long course of time, I don't really see it as hyped up as the anime makes it with like the opening and the ending. But I do like that they really pumped up Veldora's scenes in general. Like, he has really good scenes throughout the episode in terms of how nice he looks. Anyway, after that we go into the information about Veldora's Faust and Rimuru's 4 ultimate skills. So pretty good to know what their upgrades are. I do believe that perhaps the light novel had a little bit more information, but I'll check that later. Anyway, after that we go into the new opening, and I thought it looked good. I thought there was a lot of swagger coming into it when they're walking. I also enjoyed seeing everyone's uniforms. It's a pretty neat color scheme. After that we have Veldora returning his aura within his body, and of course the humor was good here. It looked very DBZ with him pumping out his aura. Rimuru made the point that, that doesn't look like you're actually compressing it. And it was interesting because you did see it in the sky, Veldora's shape being reduced. He referenced anime and manga, and that's where he learned how to do it, but the way he went about it was the power-up animation, but then ultimately he was able to get everything compressed, which that in of itself just speaks to how incredible Veldora is to be able to copy something from a manga or whatever like that. In anime there's sometimes these characters that just know what to do and they explain it in terms of feelings, and then there's characters that know how to explain things. Veldora is one of those people that just knows things by feeling. And it's cool to see the character archetype here. Anyway, after that we go into Veldora and Rimuru in town, and Rimuru introduces Veldora in the cutest way possible. You also had a little bit of blush on Veldora's face. It was cute. After that we have the town realizing that that's Veldora in fact, and we also see the Dryads coming in and they give the quick thanks for Veldora taking them in. Everyone's pretty happy. Next we had Rimuru getting embarrassed over Veldora calling him a sworn friend. But when I saw that scene of Rimuru being embarrassed that Veldora was hugging him and all that kind of stuff, I found Rimuru to be the uncool one personally, but honestly Rimuru almost always is the uncool one. It's just, I think, a little immature to not have fun with your friends you haven't seen in a long time. But Rimuru's original guy might be a guy that thinks it's cool to be stoic, but that's ultimately not really fun. But that might also be like a cultural difference. The reason I bring this up though is because it's always fun to see where Rimuru has personal trip-ups, and the episode does show it later, but just looking back at this one, it's like, come on, man. Come on. He's like your buddy. He's been inside your stomach. He's already been so close to you. Just enjoy the festivities. But again, Rimuru has these weird ways of connecting with people, or he has these weird hang-ups. Again, it might just be a cultural thing, but he could do with being a little bit more friendly, or he could do with being a little bit more whimsical. If you were to give a better comparison, you'd say like it'd be better off for him to be more like the One Piece characters, because at least they always have fun. Now, I will note that during this sequence, it seemed like Benimaru had some thoughts because he had a really intense close-up, but the anime didn't really dive into what was going on here, so I will check the light novel later to see if Benimaru had some other thing going on in the back of his head. After that, we go into a big feast, and I think this was my favorite shot of the feast, just with Yom on the floor and Murin, just pounding it back, and everyone just kind of having fun. If you notice, Trainee was there, and I think she's eating chips or something like that. Anyway, after that we have Shion's cooking, and man, funniest scene in the episode. We find out that Shion has the unique skill Master Chef or something like that, and the scene was just excellent all the way throughout. I think it was pinnacle slime comedy. I think Benimaru and Rimuru were working really well on that one. I like that Master Chef just makes things work for Shion. Now, the anime did put a little comedy thing of a fly or was it a moth dropping down after smelling it, which indicates that there is still some poison to the smell, but that's just a joke, right? Anyway, I like it. I know what Master Chef does. Let me tell you, Master Chef is broken. But just I can tell you this because there's no way you're going to be able to figure out what exactly Master Chef can do. And that'll be ridiculously awesome when you see the various payoffs for that particular skill. Like, it happens a lot. Ultimately, though, good for Shion. I like that they are still able to kind of bring her down by pointing out that the visuals are not what matters. But overall, this was my favorite scene in the episode. It had so much energy. It was so good. Really made the episode for me. After that, we go into the meeting and introducing Diablo properly to the rest of the people. And then we have the whole thing with Rimuru wanting to be our Demon Lord and people pointing out, well, like, you're already our Demon Lord. And then it's like, oh, no, I want to be officially a Demon Lord. So that was pretty expected. They're all monsters. They don't necessarily care. They already saw what they had to do. Like, from their perspective, Rimuru went and revived people. So they don't care. They know what it's about. But yeah, once you start talking about Clayman, things get more interesting. Now, within the scene, we had a moment where Rimuru was giving out orders, and he specifically tells Benimaru that go find people's new skills. And I thought that was really good because I would love to take inventory of what skills people actually got. Because when you look at it, like, Shion got Master Chef, right? Like, imagine how many other cool skills are right now running around in Rimuru's group, right? After that, we have Fuse's entry. This scene is important because it shows how good of an ally Fuse is. This guy was ready, and that's really worth something. So even though he ultimately gets taken away by the unreasonableness that is Rimuru's existence, it's important to note that Fuse is a good person. He's willing to go to war with another big country for the sake of helping an ally. No matter how you look at it, even if he looks stupid here, it was still worthwhile that he came in his capacity as an ally with an army ready. If Slime was a different series and wasn't a power fantasy, this could have led to some really dramatic, intense moments, but Slime isn't like that. It's a power fantasy. Then we have Gazelle showing up, and then we have the next instance of character flaw when Rimuru says that he doesn't want to be alerted to everyone, just the people with hostile intent. So this was just important, again, to show Rimuru's judgment is not infallible, and to again show that Raphael gets fed up with Rimuru sometimes. You could even hear a little sigh from Raphael once this whole scene was done after the elves arrived and all that. But yeah, Rimuru tends to not really think little things through, and unfortunately, a lot of his worst traits come up as moments that get played for comedy, and they're usually between him and Raphael. But when you like sit down to actually look at it, the writer has this consistent trend with Rimuru either not listening to Raphael well enough, or just not thinking, not thinking about, you know, what's gonna happen if I turn this particular feature off, right? And that's ultimately just to show that Rimuru's judgment is not perfect, and it's ultimately to show that Raphael is very useful. And of course, these moments are important because it also characterizes Raphael a little bit. Because when you see her sighing, or when you hear her sighing, it's, I think, is it a her? Whatever. When you see Raphael sighing, or when you hear it, it gives you a little bit more to work with when it comes to their particular relationship. So this is, I think, one of the valuable scenes, and it is worth seeing every time Rimuru trips up. Now, mind you, I will say, if we had a thing where Raphael wasn't in existence, I don't think Rimuru makes as many errors and judgments as he does in the novel and in the anime. But because Raphael is there to pick up the slack, it's a little bit different. It's more like he can afford to make these errors of judgment. Then we have Gazelle formally greeting Rimuru, and Raphael saying that there was no hostility when the elves were arriving. Again, it's so good to see Rimuru dealing with the reality of, oh, I can still be surprised if I'm not detecting everything. We then see some typical dwarf versus elf banter, and we learn of the homunculi bodies, and I believe that Rimuru did say that he would like to learn about that as well, which might be something cool for the future. We then go full overprotective dad scene. I thought this wasn't like the funniest scene. I did like how his daughter Aaron came in and just whacked him, but this one, you know, it didn't hit the same comedic notes that the Shion scene did. Anyway, one thing to note here is this guy was ballsy enough to attack a demon lord. But would he have done the same thing if he had his flesh and blood body right there? Probably not, but at the same time, it's his daughter. He was going off the handle here. This might be the kind of guy that would die for his daughter's sake. We then have Aaron versus Pops, and we get his proper introduction, and we end with all these bigwigs saying that they're coming to the meeting. I think it's likely that Fuse is going to be at the meeting as well, given that they all just kind of shoved their way in there. But yeah, that's what we had for this episode of Slime in terms of the scene. Now, is there any like overall points to really talk about when it comes to the episode? Even looking at the recap, what do you really get out of the episode? Well, when you look at it, it's interesting. You have the portion that is Veldora coming back and integrating into Rimuru's community, but there's not really any critical details that you really pull out from that. After that, the most substantial scene might legitimately be Shion and her cooking. It takes up a lot of time in the episode. It's pretty funny. There's nothing but pure entertainment there. The most valuable thing is the fact that MasterChef is in existence, but that scene might encapsulate what's going on with the episode. It's a lot of character interaction. It's a lot of fluffy character interaction that doesn't really tell you a lot in the long run. If we were to go in there and just pull out all the relevant information, what you're going to pull out is specifically the information of the skills. That's it. That's really it. Like, for the first half is the information of the skills, and the next half, I mean, when you look at the meeting is Rimuru saying a few times that he's going to be a demon lord. And then they gloss over the actual battle plan for what they're going to do. And like, we know that they're going to go in and talk, and they're going to try and rescue Carrion and all that kind of stuff. When you look at the second half does have a few more interesting things, only in that they said we're making plans for how we're going to deal with this stuff. So you get a nice bullet list there. But when the first half, the most important things for the future, aside from the character interactions, are just pretty much the skill information. I believe that the information about Trainee's relationship with Veldora, I believe that was new information here, but it's so hard. I have the information from the novels and I can't really remember which bit of information happened when. But this is important to note, just because Slime does lean heavily towards slice of life. And right now, we're heading into, as you can see in the opening, we're heading into like a kind of Warzy arc. But after that, you know, we do go back into a lot of slice of life. So it's interesting just to see the slice of life coming back. And it's worth pointing out that some parts here are just feel good. Again, nothing wrong. Like, if you're watching season 2 of Slime, it's because you have an understanding of what kind of balance Slime has with slice of life to action. So not a really big deal. Looking at again at that second half, trying to see if there's anything worth pointing out here. No, you just have the character introductions for the other forces coming in. It's really interesting. With that meeting, all you really get is the information of what people are going to do next and people showing up. So ultimately, when you look at the majority of the episode, it's not the most information dense episode, but as the return episode for the second half of the season, you know, you're starting off with a party, you're seeing characters be happy. That's pretty good. It's feel good, right? Like, that's ultimately what people want from Slime. So from the feel good perspective, this is pretty par for the course. In conclusion, what do you really get for the episode? Well, you just get a lot of nice character interactions and character introductions with the promise of stuff happening in the future. Relative to Slime episodes, are there any negative points here? Well, I'm not gonna score it, but I don't know. I'm so used to Slime's gimmicks and Slime's pace that I can't really score it well anyway. I would say, you know, maybe my only thing might be just I wish I knew more about the skills. That's ultimately what it always comes back to. I wish I knew more about the skills. I wish I didn't have to go into the novel to read a few little clarifications. But that's an adaptation problem. Yeah, overall, a solid episode of Slime. And again, if you like the characters and you like character interactions, this is going to be a pretty solid episode for you. Veldora comes in with a lot of energy. Any notes to have about the opening? Interestingly, in the opening, you don't really get to see the other Demon Lords, which is just, I think that's a wasted opportunity, just because you get to interestingly see these people, which honestly did not expect that, because the Demon Lords should be right around the corner, given how many books we're probably adapting here. Actually, think about it. Like, the opening doesn't really tell you a lot. Like, a good chunk of the opening is spent in Rimuru walking around. So that's kind of interesting in and of itself. The ending was really cute. Again, they put a lot of emphasis onto Veldora and Rimuru's relationship, which I find it funny, given how they work in the long term. But yeah. Anyway, everyone, that's it for me. That was this episode of Slime. Overall, I enjoyed it. It put a smile on my face. Let me know what you thought down below. Until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.